honor when I get an opportunity to sit with what I like to call musical royalty. I have a lot of questions. We got a long way to go in a short amount of time. The one and only Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, the legendary, do I call you Sergeant? Artimus Pyle is here with us. Mr. Artimus Pyle, how are you?
Hey, Rich. Uh, I am a sergeant in the Marines, but I'm also a colonel. I'm official a colonel, a Kentucky colonel, because I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and Governor Bashir signed a document making me a colonel. I get mail that says Colonel Artemus Pyle, so I love it. But in the Marines, I was a sergeant, E5, and I was going to go to Officers Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia, um, because the dream that my father and I had was for me to fly jets for the Marines. And I did fly backseat in our, um, we had a squadron of Skyhawks, A4C Skyhawks, and we had trainers, and I flew backseat. So my physiology makeup, I I can take over 7 Gs in a dive, and I never get sick when I'm airborne. And they said that I was perfect for flight school. But then my father was killed in a midair plane collision in Albuquerque, New Mexico, hit from above and behind by a B-57 weather recon bomber. And after Dad was killed, I went from being a pilot in the Marine Corps to a drummer in a rock band called Lynyrd Skynyrd. So life throws you some curves.
Well, I guess so. It's just so wild how your life has intertwined like that from planes and rock and roll and things like that. Of course, we're talking with Artimus Pyle of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame group Lynyrd Skynyrd, music that we all grew up on and we still continue to love today. We're going to be talking about the brand new album Anthems, honoring the music of Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I think this is one of the best collections I have heard in a long time, being a lifelong fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd. But we'll backtrack a second here. So you had said the dream was to get into the Marines and kind of follow in your father's footsteps, but you also grew up kind of not only loving music, but didn't I read like you really idolized like Ringo Starr and a lot of these drummers? And was drumming kind of like your passion, kind of like your gateway and your breakaway from reality as it was as a kid?
Well, I'm a natural drummer. I was born in Kentucky and raised in Tennessee on horseback. So, the galloping of the hooves under me, I rode a horse before I walked. And so, there's a rhythm in a horse's gait. And then my grandfather had a road building company and I ran bulldozers starting at age 10, basically, in the summertime, running small bulldozers and then larger and larger. Um, I got up to a Caterpillar D8 and pushing pans, earth movers. I would get behind them and push them, and they'd get a full load of dirt. So having the rhythm of a Caterpillar D8 V8 up underneath me and horses, all of those rhythms. I am a natural drummer. I've been playing drums from when the doctor pulled me out and slapped me on my butt. I said 2, 3, 4. Um, so I hear rhythm in everything that I do. I'm sure you've been going down the road and the windshield wipers are going back and forth, and I write little songs to the windshield wipers, little symphonies in my head. Um, so I'm definitely a natural drummer, and you referred to me as a legend and all that stuff, and I appreciate that. The thing is, the legend in my band was Ronnie Van Zant. If it wasn't for Ronnie, you wouldn't even know my name. I was Ronnie's drummer. He got me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's something I never even dreamt of, but I found out it's kind of a big deal, and it's a pretty small club, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and so thank you, Ronnie. He is the legend. It was his vision. He wrote those songs, those prolific words that everybody, And I play these songs every day with my band. We've been together going on 16 years, and we are the basic track on our new album, Anthems. That's Brad Durden, Scott Rains, Jerry Lida, and Dave Fowler, and myself, Artimus Pyle, USMC. And we are the basic track on all those tracks with Dolly Parton, with Sammy Hagar, with Warren Haynes, with Ronnie Dunn from Brooks and Dunn, Billy Ray Cyrus. We have 13 artists that put their best foot forward to sing basically for Ronnie. They respect him as a singer, songwriter, performer. So Sammy Hagar, he put so much soul into the delivery of Simple Man. And when Dolly played Freebird for me, she took me into the control room and sat me down, and she played her vocal on our track we recorded. I cried like a little baby. I mean, the tears just flowed. And that was before we lost Gary Rossington, the
Oh,
last founding member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And against all odds, man, I was able to get Gary Rossington on Freebird with Dolly playing his iconic slide solo. And that was, that was the last thing that Gary ever recorded. And it brought us together as friends. And Gary and I had been kept apart because keeping Gary and I apart, the last two real members of Lynyrd Skynyrd, there was more money for the management and the lawyers to steal. But this album with Dolly and getting Gary on there with Dolly, it brought us back together. And I cherished the text between Gary and I because, he told me, he said, I love Freebird. I love Dolly's vocal. Ronnie up in heaven it loves it. The whole band would love it. And Gary kind of waxed poetic to me in his text, which I will cherish these texts for the rest of my life, saying that it gives him a real nostalgic feeling listening to Dolly, her version, that gigantic little voice of hers, or that little gigantic voice of Dolly's. Gary loved it. And Dolly kind of sang with Gary on that beautiful melody that he plays on Slide. She kind of scats with him with her backup vocalist that she's been with for years. And Kent Wells was Dolly's producer for 35 years. He is our producer on this new album, Anthems. And he got me the fattest drum sound I've ever had. Sonically, the album with modern recording technology, it sounds bright and warm, even though it is digital, but we do have vinyl. We did put out vinyl. And so it was a hard process navigating the shenanigans of Nashville, Tennessee. And it wasn't easy getting Gary on there with Dolly, but we got it done. And February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, we officially released the album. And there was already about 4,000 of the vinyls and pre-orders that have been out there, because it took us a while to get all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. But one thing I want to make very clear, and this is by design, the lion's share, of course, of these songs, Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama, Simple Man, these are all songs that Ronnie Van Zant wrote. And members of the band, Gary Rossington, Leon Wilkeson, Billy Powell, Steve Gaines, Ed King. These are Alan Collins. These are the guys that wrote the songs. So the lion's share of the royalty, the mechanicals, the licensing fees will go to the children and grandchildren of my friends that are up in rock and roll heaven. And that's everybody. When Gary passed away, that left me as the last living member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And it's not a good feeling. It's a bad feeling, as you can imagine. But we by design, we wanted to do something for the children and grandchildren. And Judy Van Zant, Ronnie's widow, was fully behind us on this project and helped certain things happen. So we thank Judy very much for that. And we're very proud of the record. I mean, I've been doing interviews in the last couple of weeks in Sydney, Australia, Athens, Greece, Edinburgh, Scotland, London, England, Paris, France, Montreal, Toronto, all over the United States. And everybody loves the album as what it is. It is a tribute album. We are a tribute band. I would never call myself Lynyrd Skynyrd or my band Lynyrd Skynyrd without Ronnie Van Zant. So this is a tribute to Ronnie and his music and his band. And I feel very lucky to be included.
We're speaking with the great Artimus Pyle of Lynyrd Skynyrd fame and the brand new album Anthems, honoring the music of Lynyrd Skynyrd with the Artimus Pyle band, and an amazing, like you were saying, amazing lineup. Were you able to handpick these artists that are on there? Dolly Parton, Ronnie Dunn, Michael Ray, Marty Raybon of Shenandoah on Give Me Three Steps. Ooh, boy, I just love that man. Were you able to help handpick, or was it kind of like these folks are available, let's have them on it?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. Availability and scheduling is a very big thing. I wanted Bob Dylan on this record. I wanted Neil Young on this record, and they wanted to be, but scheduling. But once Dolly Parton sang Freebird, and we're on Dolly's album. She did 30 songs on her new album, Rockstar, which went on many formats, #1 all over the world. And so we have a song on there. There's 30 songs she did with Paul McCartney and Ringo, and she went with Sheryl Crow. They all are on this record, and we're number 30, Freebird, which after Freebird, it's time to go home. So once Dolly kind of opened that door, getting other artists to come on board was not as hard, because who doesn't want to be on an album with Dolly?
Right.
And she did this incredible job on Freebird. The arrangement that Kent Wells and our band came up with for her was truly spectacular. And then Dolly made Freebird her own. But then that opened the door. Some of the artists, like Sammy Hagar, he wanted to choose his own song, and he chose Simple Man. But some of the songs we had to assign and ask if they would like to sing that song, and it usually came back, yes, I'll make it happen. Ronnie Dunn from Brooks and Dunn, the treatment that he gave Sweet Home Alabama, I loved it, because Ronnie Van Zant was from the South. He lived in Florida. He had a Southern accent, but he didn't have a twang. And Ronnie Dunn, by giving it that Sweet Home Alabama, that little twang that he put on there, I loved it. I love the way he sang it. We dropped it as a single in Nashville on October 20th when we played the Grand Ole Opry on the 46th anniversary of the plane crash. We were at the Grand Ole Opry there in Nashville, and we play Ryman Auditorium several times with Dolly to raise money for breast cancer awareness. But this was the actual Opryland, the new place out on the river. Huge, thousands of people, sold out. Vince Gill was on the show with us that night, as well as many other new young artists. And they gave us 2 songs, and we dropped Sweet Home Alabama. And all day long, I was getting texts and calls, people saying, I just heard Ronnie Dunn singing Sweet Home Alabama on the radio, and man, does it sound good. And so he put that little twang, which to me opens it up to a whole new genre. And that's what we wanted to do. We have a young girl, 33 years old, hotter than a firecracker, sweet as she can be, from Canada, Lindsay L. And she did Needle in the Spoon, and she did an incredible job. And her voice, I would compare her voice to like Sheryl Crow, and I know the band, Sheryl Crow's band, um, Robert Kearns and Audley Freed and all those guys. I've known them for years. They were on Jimmy Kimmel last night.
Huh.
Um, and an incredible song that Cheryl sang. So Cheryl's on Dolly's new album, but Lindsay is Canadian, so we kind of reached across the border, and everything. Is a little bit of diversity there, and so against all odds, man, we were able to get this done and get Gary on there and get the album, released, because you're working with 14 different artists, 14 different management companies, 14 different managers, 14 different, well, 400 different lawyers.
Right.
And it is not easy navigating the ins and outs. But we did get it done. And the artwork looks great. The name of the album, that wasn't my idea for Anthems, but I love it. I was calling the album, working title was Honoring the Music of Ronnie Van Zant. That was my working title, and I wouldn't have mind calling it that. Or one of my ideas was Against All Odds, getting the album done. But when they came up with our record company and our PR firm, as we progressed, and the name Anthems came up, I loved it because Ronnie, as you know, because you grew up with this music too, man, and Ronnie didn't write just hit songs or hit albums. He wrote anthems that will be here for 1,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah, he truly did. And it's funny you say that is because uh it was like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, something like that, when I knew that you and I were going to be chatting. For whatever reason, I scrolled across something online. It was a story about Lynyrd Skynyrd or whatever, and it was a critic talking about music. And you were involved in this song, and you were actually in the short little clip they played. But somebody said, if you want to know why Lynyrd Skynyrd is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, why they were a true blue rock band, and why people gravitated towards them, all you have to do is watch this clip of them singing "Give Me Back My Bullets." It was one of the tightest songs, one of the best performed songs, and the lyrics just stuck with you. Now, I don't know if a lot of people outside of Lynyrd Skynyrd fandom like us, right? No, I mean, really know that song. But I sat there and I went, oh my, that is so true. Like, "Give Me Back My Bullets," like, is the quintessential rock song for a rock band.
Yeah. Well, Ronnie, you know what the bullets are referring to, right? When you chart, when you have a new song out and it makes the charts, and you're working your way up the charts, when you get, when you're going up the charts, unless you come in at number one, uh, you have like your number three with a bullet, number four with a bullet, your number two with a bullet. That means that you're on the way up. And so Ronnie was basically saying to the record companies, give me back my bullets. And it was a play on words, the way Ronnie could,
Yeah.
turn a phrase, and the play on words that he double entendre, that he did a lot of times. He was a genius, man, at prolific songwriting. And you're right. I heard one time, I'm in another room, and I hear on the TV Bob Dylan talking, and there I hear Simple Man in the background. So, I was doing dishes in the kitchen. And so I ran out into the living room, and there's Bob Dylan saying, you know, everything you need to know was written by Ronnie Van Zant in a song called Simple Man. That's all.
Wow.
And that band, Lynyrd Skynyrd, he said, that's all you need to know. And man, tears came to my eyes, because here's Bob Dylan, the poet laureate, one of the greatest of all time, talking about Ronnie Van Zant's songwriting and his words, that he wrote the song about his mother and his grandmother. And I knew Ronnie's mother. and she was one of the strongest women I've ever met. And so Ronnie wrote that song for her. And Simple Man is, uh, it's one of the greatest songs ever written. So, happy to be
Yeah.
included.
Artimus Pyle and the brand new album Anthems, the music of Lynyrd, honoring the music of Lynyrd Skynyrd. We just got you for a short brief of time here, so I want to ask you, have you ever, when you guys were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you're up there and you're being honored by your peers, you're being honored by the fans, you're being honored by the industry. I have to imagine a lot is going through your head. A lot is going through your head of hearing those beats as a kid on the horse. A lot of it is, trying to follow records of Ringo Starr. A lot of it is the tragedy that Lynyrd Skynyrd had. And here we are today now in 2024. I almost I can see it in my head where it's almost as if, everybody knows the story of Artemis Pyle crawling through alligator infested swamps to get help for his friends to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. To hear you are carrying on that, the message and the love of Lynyrd Skynyrd. I want to know, if when you were standing up there, is it all a blur, or what was going through your mind when you were being inducted?
It was a great night. Um, I had my family with me, my sons. My daughters couldn't make it. They were in Florida, but um, it was very emotional. I found myself, since you asked the question, it occurred to me that I was up in the Waldorf Astoria in my suite, and there was this big shower, a real nice marble shower stall, and I sat down on the floor of the shower stall and let the water run over me, and I mean, tears. I cried like a baby. I didn't know it was going to come. I didn't realize it, but I was hit emotionally, and crying in the shower is the best place to do it because you're already wet and you don't have to dry your eyes. You just let it pour. And I was hit with a moment about 5 minutes um, before we went down there for the ceremony that night. And then when I got up to the podium and they asked me to speak, uh, I simply said, we would like to thank our fans, our friends, and our families. And that pretty much covers it. And I mentioned, somebody yelled out, somebody, when I got up, somebody yelled out, Freebird. I think it was Sting. Uh, Sting. I'd been talking to Sting that night. Ozzy Osbourne, of course, was there. We were inducted with Black Sabbath, Blondie, the Sex Pistols, Miles Davis. I got to hang out with one of my heroes, Herbie Hancock. Um, and so Deborah Harry from Blondie. Uh, the Sex Pistols were invited, but they sent a really nasty letter, which is very much the Sex Pistols, saying, how could you charge us money to come over and be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? You should pay for everything, and like gave us a free bird. Jan Werner from Rolling Stone read the note over the. He said, so that it was funny. But they should have been there. You're only inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame once.
Right.
So when somebody yelled out, I have no idea, yelled out Freebird, I said, oh yeah, we will be playing Freebird. And then the house erupted in applause. And we did Sweet Home Alabama and we did Freebird. You can do a couple of songs. Deborah Harry did 3, I think. So when I was playing tambourine on Sweet Home Alabama, I'm looking over at Bob Burns, and I had tears in my eyes because I'm looking at Bob Burns. He's playing Sweet Home Alabama right in the pocket. I mean, right there in the pocket. And then I did Freebird because Bob said, Artemis, I haven't played in years. Would you play Freebird? Because it's so long. And I said, of course. And he said, I'll play Sweet Home Alabama. I'm thinking about that 16-year-old kid with Gary Rossington, Ronnie Van Zant, and Bob Burns. And they're in a carport on the west side of Jacksonville, practicing in the hot summer heat of Jacksonville, Florida. And it just occurred to me, there's that kid just that had a dream. They all had this dream. Ronnie had a vision. Uh, and there's Bob sitting there on Sweet Home, Alabama, in front of the rock and roll royalty of the world that showed up because of it was Black Sabbath. And Metallica played all of the Black Sabbath songs that night. Because Miles Davis, a jazz cat, which is, I listened to Miles Davis. I listened to Herbie Hancock. I listened to John Coltrane and Billie Holiday. That's my stuff. Weather Report. But I'm looking over at Bob and I'm thinking, man, here's the dream. There it started, and here it is. And I'm standing here in a full tuxedo, getting ready to play Freebird, and it was so emotional. So I remember everything about that night, man. Thanks for bringing that up, because it is a good memory. It's a good memory.
Artimus Pyle, it is Anthems honoring the music of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Really quick, so when you get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, do you get like a gold card or something? Does that get you in free to like Disney World? Like, can you carry that around and show everybody, hey, I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well, I do. There's a couple of perks, for that. I get to vote every year. I just got my ballot.
That's cool.
See the ballot?
Yeah, I do. That's cool.
And it's in the back. There's my envelope. I'm going to send it back. There's the number. That's all of the artists. I get to pick 7 of those artists out of those 15. And then I rip off my ballot, put it in here, and send it to the foundation, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation, which is in New York, not Cleveland. The actual, brick and mortar is in Cleveland.
Well, and I like that too. We can tell that rock and roll is still making money because they give you a stamp. They don't make you put your own stamp on it. That's good too. I like that.
They gave us a stamp.
Yeah.
Can you give me 15 seconds?
We got it. Yeah, we're running short, but yeah, go ahead. We are speaking with Artimus Pyle of the great Lynyrd Skynyrd, who is getting ready to cast his vote for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yes, there it is.
You see that?
There it is.
And it's very heavy. And this ring, do you see this ring?
Uh-huh. Yep.
A
little to your left there. A little to your left. There we go. Yep. Right there.
Yeah. This ring is made out of the airframe of our airplane. It was given to me about 10 years ago. So that top plate of the ring, was part of the airframe of the plane that we crashed. And this is kind of cool here.
Oh.
But I just wanted to, since you mentioned that, I thought I'd show you. But
the stories, the memories. I imagine your kids, your grandkids, just have amazing memories of stories. I mean, what a life lived and what a life you continue to lead, carrying on the torch and the tradition. And then bringing in others to the Lynyrd Skynyrd family, not only new generations. You go out and play now and you're seeing 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation Lynyrd Skynyrd fans that are out there playing with you. The one question, of all this stuff, as you know, I'm a kid of the 70s. I was born in the 70s, so I've been a Lynyrd Skynyrd fan my entire life. And I have all these, and I think I know a lot about Artimus Pyle and Lynyrd Skynyrd and all these questions that I thought of, and I really didn't have to write much down. But there is one question that I had to ask you before I got you off the horn, and I want to know. You had mentioned it one time. Did Mick Jagger ever call you and cuss you out because you guys got a better performance than them when you opened for them years ago?
No, no. I know Mick. We've done some shows together. Um, he he did not call me and did not cuss me out, but the London Times Mirror, because there was 300,000 people there that day. We were about 60 miles outside of London on a big estate, like blue blood royalty type of the Nebworth estate. And like I say, 10cc, Hot Tuna, Todd Rundgren, uh, Creedence Clearwater Revival, us, and the Rolling Stones. So the one thing is that Mick Jagger had requested that Ronnie not go out on the big tongue from the filming that day, because that was the Rolling Stone logo, was the big set of red lips and then the big tongue. And when the Stones came out, they inflated the lips under the stage and over the stage, and that was their logo. But for all the other bands, all there was the big black tongue that came out, and that was for Mick to run around on and do his thing, do his dancing. And so the word was that we were not supposed to use the tongue. Well, you don't tell Ronnie Van Zant not to do something. And so not only did he go out on the tongue, he grabbed Gary and Alan and pulled them down on the tongue as well. And we finished Freebird with them out on the tongue. And I did hear that the Stones were upset that because that was their shtick. Um, but I said, I made a statement that's, of course, it's not true, because nobody blows the Rolling Stones off stage. But I said that. I said we blew the Rolling Stones off stage because the London Times Mirror stated that we possess the energy of the day. When we did Freebird, everybody was up. And we were hanging out with Jack Nicholson and Paul McCartney and Linda Eastman McCartney backstage. And that's something you'll never forget, hanging out with Paul and being able to talk to Paul McCartney, talking to Jack Nicholson. I remember asking him if he would, get Leon, our bass player, into a movie. I said, Jack, this guy needs to be in a movie. Could you get him in a movie? And of course he said, yeah, sure. But we were all hanging out backstage, smoking weed. It was a fun day. And it's just stuff that, you never forget. But
Right.
the Rolling Stones came out 2 hours late, and they had been drinking the whole time they were there. So they had a buzz on. They were 2 hours late. But if you're the Rolling Stones, you can come out 2 hours late, and you can be drunk, and the endings can be sloppy, and it doesn't matter because you're the Stones. But I did make that statement, and a lot of people think that Mick got mad at me. I just spoke the truth.